So welcome to the show today. I have Daniel Bjärne today with us, and he's the CEO of SchoolApply. We got to know each other, I guess, a couple of months ago via LinkedIn. I was really excited to share what you're up to in the whole education phenomenon that's going on right now. So tell us a little bit about your journey. So what's the story that got you to where you are today?
Right. So the background to what I'm doing today is that I worked for an international education company, and I saw firsthand how there was a need for democratization of how you choose, how you apply, and how you enroll with universities abroad. So together with my co-founder Eric, we decided to build a platform that, similar to what you see in other industries like hotel or travel, we would build a platform that makes all of this easy and very user-friendly. So we decided to start SchoolApply, which is very simple, a site where you can search, find, select, and apply to any of the major international universities in the world. And we focus on United States, UK, and Canada.
Okay, so that's kind of like that's the company you're running right now, which we're going to go a little bit more into in a minute. I want to take a step back and go a little bit into your journey. So what got you inspired to become an entrepreneur? So you worked at a big education company before, right? So what was that? So let's go with entrepreneurship first. What was that trigger? What inspired you to become an entrepreneur?
I don't think I ever needed to be inspired to be an entrepreneur. I think that was something that I was already in my heart, and I guess that started when I was 10 years old and washed my dad's car, my mom's car, and my neighbor's cars, and realized that it's fun to build something to make money. And when I started to employ my friends into various ventures when I was 12, I think I was pretty much set to be an entrepreneur. I started my first real business when I was at university, and then my second one just after. Then for a number of years I worked as an employee in tech and education, but I always knew I was going to come back to running my own thing again.
I love it. Okay, so you're one of these almost natural born entrepreneurs or natural raised entrepreneurs. I love that. But what about education? There's so many fields you can go into. I very much believe education is probably one of the biggest ones we need to change, revolutionize, whatever word you want to use. But what about you? I mean, what is it? Was there a trigger that inspired you to tackle education, or what was it?
To be honest, I think I stumbled into the industry at the first point. But once I got into education, I really understood how gratifying it is to work in this field, because it's not just about providing people with better goods or better services that just sort of makes their life easier. What we do, change people's lives, and that's really gratifying with education, I would say.
Absolutely, I love that. So
I wish I could say I dreamt about it from the get-go, but I didn't. But now when I'm in it, I'm definitely here to stay in education.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different paths people take. Sometimes they stumble into something, but then it's also, when people stumble into something, some people ignore that stumbling. Others say, well, that's really interesting. Let me follow that path. Let me follow that intuition or gut feeling that sort of like got me down this route.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is a beautiful background story. I love that you're tackling education, and I just want to learn a bit more about the company. So where are you guys right now in terms of the growth, in terms of the stage? I know that you guys are very international. You guys have now, you moved the headquarters to Dubai. You started in Switzerland, now you moved it to Dubai. So tell me a bit more about the company. Like where is it at the growth stage, and also what made you decide to move to Dubai?
So we started 2 years ago and formed the company in Switzerland. And we decided after a while that, well, actually, we needed to put our operation somewhere. And since we were focusing on countries close to the Middle Eastern region, so we were focusing on countries, the Gulf states, India, a couple of countries in Africa and Southeast Asia, we kind of figured that employing people in Europe would mean that we wouldn't be culturally so close to our target audience. So we thought about various places where we would be able to find people with the right connections to these countries. And Dubai emerged as one place where, it seemed sort of easy to set up a company and hire great staff. One of those things were right. We found great staff, but setting up a company turned out to be a lot harder than it was in Switzerland. So we're still a Swiss company, but many of our employees are based in Dubai.
Okay. What about some facts and figures to give people some bit of a context? Because I know you guys have grown at an incredible rate over the past 2 years. So give me some facts and figures. Where do you guys stand right now?
So we launched our site and service beginning of last year in 2016, and at that point we didn't have a single partnership with the university. We literally just had a website that we had built and no visitors. So we very much started from scratch. And the first challenge, of course, was to get partnerships with universities, and that has grown pretty well. So now we're at 300 plus universities that we officially represent. We still help students to get into universities that we don't represent, but that's, of course, a good segue to start that conversation. We are growing sort of both on the supply side and on the demand side. The supply side being our university partnerships, on the demand side with students. And now after the summer we have processed close to 1,500 student applications since the beginning of this year. So we're coming to a point where we're not big, but we're starting to make a little dent into the industry and get a foothold. The market is massive. There's 5 million students studying abroad every year, and I think our service has the potential to help all of them. So, the vision is still far away, but it's working, and we're getting the initial evidence that what we do is right, and now it's all about scaling.
Absolutely. So tell me a bit more about that journey. For the past 2 years, so you've built this company now into something that is ways beyond, you and what you can run by yourself. Right. And tell me a bit about what were some of the biggest challenges you faced along the way with that much growth and starting it basically from a blank slate.
I think like any entrepreneur, you gotta roll up your sleeves and love doing a bit of everything. And before we launched, both my co-founder and I, we pretty much did everything. We were part of building the platform, as well as creating processes, backend systems, pitching to investors, and the next day you were producing Google AdWords campaigns or Facebook ads or social stories, and you were just all over the place. And eventually you hire good people that are better at those things than yourself, and then it's hard to take a step back. I think we are at the point now where we've been able to establish a really good and seasoned management team that can take of the daily operations. The challenge as a founder, I think, is to allow people to do what they're good at, allow them to make their own mistakes, and rather sort of help them with the vision and the long-term journey rather than pointing at all the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. And so kind of like what I heard is like one of the biggest challenges as you grow so fast and as you hire people and hire a management team is really instead of being the bottleneck, giving people responsibility, but not just that, but removing yourself as the bottleneck, and trusting people that they're able to, you know, not micromanage them, but being able to let go of control and give them the responsibility and give them the trust to do things on their own. And as you grow further and further, and you know, you have, you know, division heads and directors and everything in the company, and you know, not everybody is a direct line of you. Then trusting those to manage the others, to manage the others, to manage the others. That's kind of like what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and I think a big part of, you know, coming to that point is to nurture a really good culture, which is probably one of the hardest things to do as a leader, because that's not, the culture is never going to be what you say it is. It's going to be what people want it to be.
So tell me more about that, because this is a huge challenge always, company culture. Like, you know, some people say, well, you know, for example, Google has such a great company culture, we're trying to be like Google, right? I always think that's pretty stupid, because you don't want to be like any other company, right? You want to be unique. You want to have your own company culture, because it's your vision, it's your thing, right? So tell me about, like, how do you manage that? I mean, how are you able to create a company culture that is not controlled or managed by yourself, but still embodies your vision and sort of like your DNA, because that's what makes the company great.
I think, I mean, to start with, I think it's hard to define what culture is, because culture is kind of, I mean, it's not what you put in a deck. It's what's in your, you know, your stakeholders' head, your employees, but also people that are somewhat attached to the company. And, you know, when you look at culture and you want to define it, then you got to pick the nuggets from what people believe and nurture those things. You can't just introduce something that is, you know, not related to what people think. So, you know, we just been through an exercise which was really interesting. I spent 24 hours on just talking about our culture, and there were a number of things that people pointed out that, you know, they feel strongly about, a number of attributes that they feel strongly about, and I didn't necessarily agree with all of them. But then at the same time, you have to be like, this is also their company. This is where they work, and they decided to work here for a reason, and you gotta take that in. Nurture that culture and get it to grow and be precise. I think it's important that you show evidence of the culture. There needs to be stories, examples of how this culture or this aspect of your culture helped your team to succeed in some area, or deal with the problem, whatever it was.
I love that. So just two nuggets that I heard out of it, which is it's also their company, which I think is huge. It goes back to giving up control, letting go, you know, trusting people. And the other one is living the culture and not just trying to create one. Sort of like it's this chicken and egg problem. You're trying to create a culture and then live it.
Yeah.
Whereas the actual way to go there is to actually live it, and then it's created by itself. I think that's a key nugget there. Yeah.
And I think that's why companies like Google have been very successful at, you know, establishing a strong culture, is that all the things they point out, they actually do. Like when they talk about your 80% and 20% work time, and where you're allowed to spend 20% of your time working on pretty much what you want, that's something that they do. That's something that all their engineers are allowed to do, and managers can't tell them that they're wrong. They have to accept it. So I think it's all about executing on the culture.
Yeah, that's another big one. I think instead of creating procedures and processes and structures and things like that for creating such a culture, it's more about living it in a daily atmosphere and having a decentralized structure and not a centralized structure, so to say, and decentralized processes that each individual kind of like goes about things in their own way, obviously underneath that umbrella of the culture, but instead of having a centralized thing, it was more of a decentralized structure.
Right.
Absolutely love that. So I'd like to talk about education in a bit of a futuristic sense. Now, so you're tackling this education, this world of education from a very specific niche angle. I would like to hear your perspective. Like, where do you think? Maybe let's talk about education in general, in terms of universities and business school and things like that. Where do you think, I mean, 10, 20 years from today, we're going to be? Do you think everybody's going to study at home? Do you think like universities will still exist? Like, what's your perspective on education in that sense?
I mean, this is a good question and a hot topic. A lot of universities are talking about this, and there's massive investments into massive online courses and similar types of initiatives. You know, deep in my heart, I think there would always be a need for, you know, physical attendance when it comes to education. Not necessarily for acquiring knowledge, but you know, education fills a lot of other purposes, like working in a team or, you know, relating to other people, and we can't replace that with you know, virtual reality completely. I think. So if I look 20 years ahead, I think there will, you know, the boundaries will definitely be more fuzzy. There won't be, you know, pure brick and mortar universities as it is today. I think there will be combinations, and curriculums will be flexible, and there won't necessarily be one intake per year in September. I think, you know, you will be able to attend university for some time. You can start a course with someone who's been at that university for 3 years. You might be able to take some of it online, and you might be able to do some, you know, in person. So I think it's going to cater way more to flexible needs of students. I think the curriculum will transform tremendously into a more sort of, you know, sort of a methodology of teaching people critical thinking, how to acquire knowledge, and not necessarily studying, you know, like we did in high school with history dates and learning exact years when kings were born and died. That part is somewhat obsolete, I think, already. But I think there's definitely need for, you know, learning the sort of learning teamwork, learning how you operate with people with different backgrounds, and solving problems together. One thing that I think is going to be more important as this evolves is also diversity. I mean, we're already in a very diverse world, and most people today in our type of world don't look at countries the way as our parents did. They think it's simple to move to California for half a year to study. They think it's great to go for vacation to Australia, and, you know, distances don't mean so much anymore. So obviously you need to be more exposed to that already at an early stage. So universities will need more diversity on campus and in online courses as well.
So you don't think in the near future, or maybe 10, 20 years from today, it's going to be like, you know, people go to university at the same time, they start school at 9, they finish at 3 or something like that, and everybody has the same uniform, and everybody kind of like, there's because there's been so much conformity, right, that was built into this education system as it evolved in this industrial economy, and now is moving into another type of economy, into this digital, hyper-connected, individualistic, whatever you want to call it, economy.
Right.
There's a whole different value system that comes along with that, which is no longer about conformity, which is no longer about, you know, just about being safe or being secure and things like that. It's more risk averse, more entrepreneurial, it's individualistic, it's freedom driven, it's purpose and passion driven. So many more of these things come up now. So you think it's going to be much more, once again, decentralized, more individualistic, and also more global, I guess, and less borders.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you summed it up well. And there's all, I think, the concept of programs at university will become obsolete as well. I mean, most people today would prefer to pick their own courses if that could lead up to a degree, rather than going into a standardized program that a university has decided is what you should take.
Absolutely. Now, I'm curious, like, how do you think the global education system can handle this? Because this is like the education system is one of the biggest, most rigid structures, maybe besides government, that we have these days. So how do you think it's able to handle something like that, such a culture change and such a generation change and such a change in terms of needs and wants from a global population in a relatively short period of time, which is 10, 20 years for such a huge system?
I think there's already people in this industry who try to shake it up and implementing these type of changes. I've seen firsthand, for instance, one university that decided to implement what they call global rotation. And in that concept, you can study at 5 different campuses in different countries during one program. And I mean, that concept in itself is pretty phenomenal. Once you think about how that can be implemented over time with online, a university, for instance, a Swiss university, could have branches in 5 other cities and maybe on different continents. And if you also could attend through online courses, well, then it's already very, very flexible. And universities don't need to change that much to be able to enable this. All they need to do is to say that, yeah, our customers, our students, they want flexibility. We're good at providing content. We're good at providing courses. Let them decide their course mix. Let them decide what they think is relevant. And maybe, the whole concept of a degree is more about getting up to a certain level than actually taking X number of credits for X number of subjects.
So you also think the way that people are graded is going to be changed also in a world where, like diplomas and papers matter much less than actual, real world experience.
Yeah, I think certificates are good because it tells someone that you've learned something and you passed the bar. But those don't necessarily need to be that you had that you received a grade for X number of credits. It could be that you actually know something. So the exam could be quite different from what the degree is today.
Absolutely, I love that. Thank you for sharing your perspective on education there. Now, I'm curious about the company itself. Where do you see the company SchoolApply to be 2-3 years from today?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's all about helping as many students as possible. And in order to do that, we need to cover all good universities that we can. We have a target list of about 1,000. So in 3 years, we should have covered those. At the same time, I want to see some good growth on the student side. So in 3 years' time, I want to say that we can help about 500,000 students per year to better choice, and that would make us, significant force for good in this industry.
Absolutely. So let's take these numbers. So about 1,000 universities, about 500,000 students a year. What would you need access to, or what would you need to have in the company in order to make that kind of a vision happen in the next 2 or 3 years?
A few things. Of course, a lot of what we do is very complicated. We deal with universities in different countries, with different admission requirements, both national systems, state systems in the US, and also specific requirements to each university and program. And we try to organize all this chaos into one, understandable process for students to really make it easy for them. So our biggest challenge is to build really good infrastructure, to be honest, on the stuff that the user doesn't necessarily see. Things, for example, like a better form for applying to university. If you imagine that you want to go to university abroad, you don't know where, but you know specifically that you want to do robotics engineering. Well, how many good universities have courses in that? Maybe it's 10 out of the top 1,000. Then one university might be in California, one might be in the US, one might be in Ireland, one in Singapore. Then all those have different systems. As a student, you don't want to send out 10 different applications, so you come to SchoolApply. What we do then is that we harmonize all these requirements from different universities, and we present it as one application to you. That is pretty challenging, and something we're getting better at. The next step is sending in all your supporting documents and doing your interview process. Well, at that point, we have to be able to tell the universities that, this is Daniel, this is his passport, this is his approved transcripts from high school. Here are all the other documents, and we ship them to all the various sources, and someone needs to do that. Now we're now experimenting with doing this programmatically, so we have AI looking at documents and requirements in order to speed up that process. The next step is that you want to speak to someone, or actually universities need you to speak to someone before you can send in your confirmed application. Today, we're doing that interview with our own counselor. So we have people that are trained to do admissions interviews, talk about your needs, talk about your history, talk about your plans for the future. But they do this more sort of general for all type of universities. In our next, in the future for us, I want to see that we can do this by working with students at the university that you're applying to. So rather than speaking to us as a third party, we enable you to talk to a student at the university you're applying to. And that will help both the university and you to better choice. So, there's tons of challenges on the process side to enable this growth and to make the product really, really great. We're already good, and there's not much competition in our world, which is good and bad for us. Because that also means we need to build a lot of the infrastructure that doesn't exist. But I'd say in 2 years' time, we should have come through that part, and then it's when things can really take off.
Okay, so kind of like what I'm hearing is very, very smart infrastructure from the IT side, leveraging today's emerging tech like AI and these kinds of technologies that really enable you to do things really, really smart in a smart way. And the other one is the procedures, the structure, the processes in place with the partners, with universities, that enables each party and each stakeholder to focus on what they're best at, basically, and enables the other one to do what they're best at, and therefore make the whole thing a lot more efficient.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Good. So last question, where can people connect with you, connect with the company? What's the best place to find you and connect?
We're pretty open to connecting. So best place is probably to go to our site, schooلاpply.com, and there you'll find links to all people working for us, to LinkedIn, to Facebook. We also answer all emails. I'm on Twitter, and so is SchoolApply. So we're open to all channels, and we have to be, because users are everywhere, but the best place to go is schoolapply.com.
Perfect. Good. So we're going to link below the video so people can check that out. So thank you, Daniel, for doing this interview. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Daniel.